Hi gang, Rob here. It is the morning of 11 October 2015 and I've got a video from the sharpening bench for you guys today that I was pretty excited to make. You can see clearly that it's going to be a Chris Reeve knife that we review today. This one comes to us from my customer Lex, who over the last month and a half has become probably my #1 volume customer, so thank you, Lex. And he texted me about a week and a half ago because he had the urge to buy this knife. And I think he was sort of asking me to talk him down off the ledge, but really I couldn't because I've wanted to get my hands on one of these for a long time. I've seen them. They're kind of like a unicorn. I seen them on video, didn't know for sure if they really existed in person, and well, they're different. So let's see what we got. Let's see if the end of the box gives us a hint. It does. We're looking at the Ti Lock. And this does come in the new Chris Reeve packaging. So inside that box goes this overlay of foam. This little piece of literature. Another card with list of awards the company has won. The birth card that says Ti Lock, built July 21st, 2014. S35 VN steel, 58 to 59 Rockwell titanium handle. A Chris Reeve sticker. Warranty registration card, microfiber cloth, and the knife. Interesting that how they package these, I think, because you got all this stuff that has to sandwich together and slide into that new box, and it's kind of a chore, which is why we're not doing it on camera. And then the bottom section of all this packing, we've got all the wrenches necessary to assemble and disassemble the knife. So because it has the Ergonomics style pivot, we get 2 of the large size CRK Allen wrenches and then 1 of the standard size. The reason you need 2 big ones is because both male and female ends of the pivot are unrestrained in the handle, and sometimes you need 2. In fact, you're always going to need 2. And then we have some Loctite, which goes with that Ergonomics style pivot, and Chris Reeve fluorinated grease. Interesting that this grease is still supplied when we look at what's different about this pivot. So out comes the knife. This is the Ti Lock, designed by Grant and Gavin Hawke, who are famous for their innovative, some guys might say unnecessarily complicated, locking and deployment mechanisms. And over the last few years, they've really experimented. I shouldn't say experimented. They've put into design and development many forms of something like a strap lock, which is what this is. So the knife is retained in the handle by camming motion of this titanium strap and this little sort of barbell that falls into a groove here when the knife is closed and here when the knife is open. So let's watch how that works. You'll see the titanium bar snuggle up to that blade when it closes. And then when we open, the bar falls into that groove and the tang of the blade stops against that pin. Now, so that is the sort of Hawke portion of the knife, and I think the blade shape is sort of Hawke. It's sort of got that almost bullnose kind of shape, reminiscent of the original Sebenza, also reminiscent of the Buck, 830 Marksman. Just a super functional, sweeping hollow grind, lots of belly, very consistent thickness behind the edge all the way to the tip. Made out of Chris Reeve's 120 thousandths inch stock. Let's to get you a size comparison for those of you who haven't seen this. There is the Ti Lock. There is a small Sebenza, and I'll try to line these up butt end to butt end. So those look pretty close, don't they? They're really not. And then there's a large Sebenza. So it looks like the Ti Lock and the small Sebenza are almost identical in size, but not really. It all has to do with blade to handle ratio, because watch this when I line them up. The front of the handle's dead even. You kind of back them up. I hope you can see there's quite a bit of difference in blade length from the small Insingo to the Ti Lock, and they sort of stair step up. About 3 5/8 inches long on the large Sebenza, not quite 3 1/4 on the Ti Lock, and 2.94 on the small Sebenza. So a 1/4 inch difference between these two, and then about 3/8 as we go up to the large Sebenza. But the Ti Lock is so small closed, it doesn't carry much different than a small Sebenza. The handle length is under 4 inches. In fact, if we stand these guys up, yeah, the handle of the small Sebenza is actually longer, maybe except for the clip on the Ti Lock. So it's kind of interesting, the blade that they packed into this little handle. Other differences between Sebenzas and the Ti Lock, the finish on the handle scales is most notable. It's a beautiful and durable stone wash. I really kind of wish we could have this handle finish available on Sebenzas. And then the clip, which is a story in and of itself, is blasted. And I imagine it's blasted because it would just be awfully doggone hard to do any other way. You couldn't really satin it and make it look good. I'm not sure if you stonewashed it, whether the finish would get into the nooks and crannies. But it is a right hand only tip up clip, and I don't think they make this knife in a lefty version. It's kind of too bad they didn't give us an attachment point for the lefty, but frankly, this right-handed clip almost carries better in the left pocket for me. But so in order to put it in your pants, obviously you're not going to slide it in under the end of the clip, so you have to pinch it. And it's an intentional move, but it's not difficult. I mean, you just grab the knife like this, you give it a little pinch while you're putting it in your pocket. Your pants slide under there easily. You let go and it's there. Retention is secure but not overpowering. I've heard a lot of guys, including me, in watching videos, who really developed a dislike for this clip. And for me, it was contempt prior to investigation. I think it's a little odd looking, although it is hawkish. But in practical use, I don't mind it. I really don't. Love the 5 slots milled into the handle. Extending radially from the finger groove. I think those 5 slots sort of go with the notches in the front of the handle that are functional in the operation of the knife. Construction is just a floating stop pin that is shouldered into the handle scales. The very large Omnumzon style pivot and 1 hourglass standoff that is also a positive locating device that also doubles as a lanyard attachment. Very interesting, I think. Speaking of the lanyard, if this thing is in the right pocket, so your body being here, the knife like this, the lanyard falls forward and out, which I think is very odd. It stops at vertical. Frankly, if you're going to carry the knife with a lanyard, you probably should be a lefty. So this would be the back seam of your pocket. So it would be back and down, or to the side and down, which seems like a lot more logical way for a lanyard to fall. But so maybe this is more a lefty knife than a righty knife. Let's see. Still, if I'm left-handed, I have to extract it and then turn it 180 degrees to deploy it. But interesting. Let's look at the normal stuff. Centering is perfection. Fit and finish. Let's take a fly around the knife here. The handle scales are radiused, not chamfered. As are the milled holes. And then when we get up to the front, we have a step where the shoulders of that strap lock barbell interact with the handle. Then we come around to the finger groove and we have a chamfer that comes around this corner and then it ends back into the radius. The titanium strap, thus the name Ti Lock, is fixed into the blade sort of like a roll pin. And it, of course, bears against the knife at this intersection, which forces it downward with spring tension, quite a bit of spring tension. Can't really, it's kind of hard to demonstrate. There you go. And that's not easy to do. It's a very, very positive lock. That little titanium leaf spring is pretty stout. So I believe not only is the lock strap itself titanium, I don't know. Let's try to see if this bronze anodized barbell, that's also titanium, rare earth magnet. The thing's light, only 3.1 ounces. So the only steel on this knife are the blade, the pivot, and the screws for the pocket clip and the back standoff, which contribute to the low 3.1 ounce weight of this knife. So now let's kind of look at it ergonomically. If I come back into this finger groove, my thumb lays in this belly. My pinky kind of dangles, making the lanyard kind of a help. Interesting, in my left hand, that pocket clip doesn't bother my pinky at all. In my right hand, it does. But I don't think that's really the designed grip for the knife. There is sort of a 70-30 finger groove, and that's really where the hand wants to be. And then the lanyard kind of gets in the way, the clip doesn't, and it's a 4-finger knife. I'm going to try to keep this in my right hand just so I can describe it more accurately. That's a very comfortable grip. Very, very blade to handle efficient, isn't it? Lex had this drop shipped to me, and I think he bought it from Knife Center or Knife Art, can't remember. Wanted me to look it over and sharpen it before sending it on to him. And I told him when I got it out of the box, it's just like it's a jewel. It's different than any Chris Reeve knife I think I've ever had in my hand. Obviously it's different, but it just gives you this air of luxury for no reason. Almost It's hard to explain. I guess you sort of have to be a Chris Reeve fan to get that. And Lord knows I are one. It's a locking mechanism that seems overly complicated and isn't particularly user-friendly, although you can get used to it. It's very effective and it's very strong and it's very secure, but obviously it's there for its artistic value, isn't it? And its uniqueness. That's what I meant about it being sort of a unicorn. I mean, who does that on purpose? But who would do it by accident? It's just very special. It's either very special or very stupid, depending on your perspective. So is this an EDC knife? I don't think so. It's expensive. Well over $400. It's certainly a collectible knife. Is it a knife that you might carry, to church on Sunday? One of those knives that you just carry because it's more special than the rest of your knives? Yeah, it is that kind of a knife. So let's talk about deployment with this odd mechanism. So there's the, I guess, normal way you would do it. Just sweep that thumb stud locking bar around the end of the knife with your thumb. I keep looking for my frame lock here. And then to close it, with your index finger just resting lightly without putting any pressure on the spine, first you want to lift that barbell with your thumb, and then you can put pressure on the spine to close it. You can flick the knife open. I'm going to do this one time because I don't want to abuse Lex's knife. One time. There it goes. You just need to keep the fat of your index finger clear of that groove because you don't want the bar to run into your finger when it opens. You can also sweep it by catching your skin on the lock strap. I wouldn't advise doing that often because, as you guys know, the blue anodizing on Chris Reeve knives rubs off pretty easily. Look at the end of the thumb stud on your standard finish Sebenza. So I would not recommend repeated sweeping like that. That's how I would do it every day if I were going to carry it every day. Not as difficult as I thought it would be, by the way. Is it as intuitive as that? I don't know. It takes a lot of guys a long time to get used to how a Sebenza opens and closes, so who knows? I've never really thought about buying one of these for my collection because I've watched people try to manipulate them in videos, and I just thought, man, why would you want a knife that's that difficult to use? It's just not that difficult to use. The closing move is the most difficult thing. The opening move is actually quite natural. Let's talk about the workings of this knife, and I'm going to stop here and show you a picture because my buddy Patrick, Aiden's daddy, sent me one of his Ti Lock disassembled, and you're going to see something in this picture that's worth talking about. So hang on just a minute, guys. Be right back. Yeah, did you see that? Didn't see any phosphor bronze washers, did we? No, we did see 2 polymer rings with ball bearings in them. And that was a feature of the knife that the Hawks included. And there must have been some negotiation because Patrick has had some discussion with Gavin Hawke, co-designer of this knife with Grant. And apparently, original drawings of this guy were that it was going to be a flipper. And I can almost believe that given this sort of swale in the back of the handle. Yeah, the Buck 830 Marksman's a flipper with a strap lock. of different design, but a strap lock nonetheless. And the way this detent works is really, really slick. If you're going to flip, you have resistance to there, and then free until it cams up, approaching the lock. It's a great, if you guys have ever flipped a buck marksman, you know the Hawks know how to do that. And so along with the flipper in the original design were the ball bearing pivot. Well, Mr. Reeve killed the flipper, but he kept the bearings. And it's kind of silly almost to have bearings in this design because it's not a quick deploy knife, unless you become good at flicking it open with your thumb. So it's a little more complicated than most Chris Reeve folders. It's a little bit unique. It's a lot of cool. I mean, boy, you look at that knife. This is one of those knives where it's a do I or don't I want to do this, but hand it to your buddy open and have him close it. Well, the fun part of that is watching him struggle. The horrible part of that, the horrifying part, is that as he's struggling with it, he drops it on the concrete and tips it or puts a big gouge in the handle. But, it's a conversation piece knife. And a worthy inclusion in any Chris Reeve collection, I think. I thought you guys would like to see this before it goes home. I know that I was really excited to have one. In the mail tomorrow, it will be Lex, so look forward to seeing it later this week. That's all for today. Grace to you and peace, my friends, from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word and Lex's Ti Lock are sharp.